You're listening to the All Equity Podcast with Kevin Marcus Miller.
I've traveled out with my husband. I've traveled out with coworkers. I've just never experienced like any type of racism or witnessed it. Never. And it could be because I was with a bunch of women. Now, many of those women it was a diverse group of women. So there were, some Hispanics, Caucasians, there were Blacks.
Yep.
I don't know. Just never experienced it.
Do you feel like people judge you because of that? Like they're like, oh, I don't experience racism. Like, does that make you feel that kind of way?
Absolutely.
Let's talk about that. Because I know I can feel what you're really saying, what you're trying to say. Break this down to me. Hold on.
Yeah. So it could be because I've always been around a good, diverse group of people. So I did not experience any of that until I went off to college. And then once I went off to college, I was down in Savannah and I had my first experience of racism then. And I kid you not, when it happened, my heart dropped. And I went and got in my car, drove to a blank space somewhere. I don't even remember where it was in Savannah, but I just drove. There were no cars. There was no activity. It was just trees. And I just sat there and I was like, did I just experience this form of racism? Like, I've never had that. And I think part of it is my parents have done an amazing job of explaining us to different nationalities, because we were off in Italy for a little while because my father was in the military. So we were around a variety of families, especially during military game nights. And then they had like the kids out on the playground. So it wasn't just all, Black and brown kids. It was a variety of them. So I guess I would say that's one good thing about my father being in the military, because that's how I grew up. Now, what's interesting, I didn't realize, it may sound crazy and might get some slack for it, but whatever.
It's okay.
I did not realize that I was Black until I got to high school.
Woo!
Right. So, and the reason being is because my elementary school was extremely diverse. I didn't see color. And again, the way my parents raised us, we were in the military. So it was a variety of people. I got to high school, it was majority Black.
Wow.
And I'm like, whoa, there's a lot of Black people here. That was my initial thought. And then I went home and I told my mom and told my dad, and I was like, it's a majority Black school. And my mom was like, yeah. And so then I went home, I looked in the mirror and I'm like, wow, I'm really Black. Like, this is a thing, right? So I even remember because the school I went to, it was a transitioning school into a high school. So when I left elementary school in 6th grade, I went straight to high school in 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, all the way to 12th. And as it transitioned to a full high school for 9 through 12, I was at that school. So I only went to 2 schools, going to grade school, only went to 2. So being in that school throughout that entire transition, it then quickly got me to relate to my heritage. Because of course you start to make friends, you're in class with these people and everything. So then it really just embraced it. It wasn't ever a thing where I never embraced it. I just didn't realize it. Because of course I was around family, but I was like, that's family. They look like me. But I never, never it never hit home.
Did you never internalized it?
Right.
Okay. And what did that mean
never,
when you internalized it? Like, what did that now mean is the way you walked into the world and
right.
Was there a difference or a shift after you realized?
Yeah, there was definitely a shift. The shift happened, it could have been somewhere between 1 and 3 months after high school started. And honestly, probably closer to the 1 month. But what it did was I then started embracing who I was, learning who I am. But I also didn't realize that I know a lot of people talk about privilege.
Yeah.
Because of my parents, I didn't realize the status that they had, which I went to a pretty, I don't want to say a rich school, but it was definitely more well off than any other school within that area here in DeKalb County at that time. And I didn't know that the money that my parents had at that time was considered kind of, I guess, well off. I just thought, hey, we were able to get things that we needed, not necessarily things we wanted. But again, me not realizing that the things I needed that many people that look like us could not afford. Right. So even my friends, their parents had way larger houses than my parents. So we lived in a one level house. Nothing was wrong with it. Beautiful house. Wasn't cramped or anything. We had multiple bathrooms. I mean, everything was nice, but my friends' houses were like 2-3 levels. And I'm like, whoa, this is big. But funny thing, so I had all my friends were Black. It was just different shades, right? So there were some that what they considered as funny thing back in high school was like a light bright, but she was just, extremely light skinned.
That's the first time I ever heard that.
Yeah. It was it was like a joke that we had in high school, and she was cool with it. She laughed at it. Yeah. Meant no harm. Right. But she was extremely light skinned. And it came from somewhere deep down within her lineage where there was a white grandfather or great grandfather or something. And that's where her skin tone came from. But then when I look back, all of my friends were fair skinned. They weren't really dark. Right. Just, again, just internalizing the whole movement of how all of this transitioned. Did not realize any of that till I got to college. So when it was time to go to college, I then said I wanted to go to Georgia State University or UGA. Interesting thing, my mother was like, no, you need to go to an HBCU. Of course, I'm like, an HBCU? I don't want to go to no HBCU. I seen enough of that in high school, so that's what I was thinking. But my mother then, of course, sat me down and explained to me, why do HBCUs exist? And of course, me being young, naive, and I'm sitting here like, well, why do I need to go? I want to get the best of the best education there is. Got it. And I don't feel like I'm going to get that at HBCU. But again, so she sat me down, we had a conversation. After that conversation, I said, okay, well, maybe we need to go on some school tours. Right. So we started school tours that spring. And normally before you hit graduation, you know what school you're going to. I didn't know. I didn't make a decision. Wow. So UGA denied me. And then I received a full ride to Howard. I think it was Kentucky State, partial at University of Louisiana, and then partial at Savannah State. Wow. So then I'm like, man, all these large schools, I feel like I'm just going to be a number. But I was like looking and craving for like diversity, because I'm like, that's all I experienced before high school. And then here's high school and I don't see much of it.
It's almost like you found comfort in the diversity. And so wanting to be outside of it is actually, that's fascinating to me, because usually it's the other way around.
Right. Exactly. And so I ended up deciding to go to Savannah State. And Savannah State was the first public HBCU in the state of Georgia. Oh, wow. So I said, well, I'll go there, because after we went through the school tours, I said, man, this school right here, I can really leave my footprint. Because at that point, I said, it's a small school. And I don't even remember how many students, but it really wasn't that many students on the campus. Wow. By the time I graduated, there were well over about almost 10,000 students, where it didn't have that many before. So I said, man, I'm really going to join, go and accept the application there. Got on campus. I kid you not, I felt so out of place.
Really?
I felt out of place.
You felt like Black people was judging you.
Absolutely. And so I get that. Even till this day, I still get it. I get it because I'm just going to go off of what I've heard. Wow, it's the way you speak. Right. You don't necessarily have that accent that you're in the South. Now, probably when I get a little bit more comfortable, that part probably comes out just a little bit. But because I was born in California, my father was in the military, so we went over to Italy. We were there for, I think, maybe about 3 or 4 years. And then we flew down to Georgia because that's where my grandmother lived.
Gotcha.
So
isn't that crazy how white people still atone that? They atone like your accent, how eloquent you speak. Hi, Kevin. Nice to meet you. Right. They atone that directly with what's going on. But really, it has absolutely no correlation, right? There's
no, Black, it doesn't.
Latinos, Asians that speak eloquently and has nothing to do with what you're saying.
It never does. And, it's not even just people of other races. I get more slack from my own, about, Alysha's this, Alysha's that, and, or whatnot. But I've also created the space where I tell people, you can come and talk to me whenever, but other people, they know if you're not about your business, don't go to Alysha because she's not going to take the mess. Right. So
where in your mind did that transition start to happen in college where you were like, you know what, eventually I do want to have my own business and I want to help other people have the same mindset I have about being about their business? And for me in college, there was a huge transition shift where I knew, like, in the back of my mind as a kid, I always knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. I just didn't think I could do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Was it the same for you?
No, I would say, because me and my sister, we started working on business when we were in high school.
Oh,
and yeah, it started from just selling candy to selling Powerades to go on Saturdays. We were consigning our items at my grandmother's flea market, and pretty much learning negotiations. And then my uncle had a tire business. And we would just kind of go around with him and sell tires and do things like that.
Wow. That's cool.
And then when computers became a thing, right? It was late 90s, early 2000s. Look at me telling my age at this point.
You good? I'll chop it out. I'll chop this out.
It's all good. I don't care. But yeah, so then when computers came out, and at that point, people were still trying to learn how to use computers. So we were, drafting resumes and trying to fix them up and whatnot. So it's like always
for your college
been
buddies, like you would try to do their resume.
Right. Yeah. College and high school. Yeah. Because especially, for in high school, you had to have your resume to go to college.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So we were doing stuff like that. So it's always been within me. Now, granted, once I graduated college and I got my first job, I was honestly probably one of the happiest employees anyone could have ever had. I didn't think about having a business after that because I was happy. I was content because I was getting paid. I was able to pay my bills and I had time. I still traveled. I was like, I don't need the stress of owning a business.
Cool coworkers too?
Yeah, honestly, yeah, at that point. But now, here's the thing. But guess what? You see this?
Yeah, I see it.
5. There were 5 Black people in that firm.
You know what's crazy? When I was at Microsoft, guess how many people were in my marketing department that were Black?
Probably just you.
Just me, and I was the youngest too.
Yeah. Yeah, I was the youngest as well.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I honestly enjoyed it. There was nothing wrong. You couldn't tell me that I wouldn't still be there. At that time, I would have still been there. I would have retired from there.
Wow.
It was it
financial?
It was a CPA firm.
Wow.
I was very content. However, it got to the point where my friends started getting promotions and whatnot. I was like, why am I not being promoted? I know what I'm doing.
It's always one thing that we want, one desire that we want, where it's the trigger. So the trigger was you watching your friends.
Right. I'm like, hold on. I want more money. Right. I want to go buy houses and I want to go do this. I want to do that. So, of course, I went to work and I asked for a raise. I asked for a promotion. Most people not going to be that bold and ask for it. They just wait. And now, granted, at this time, I wasn't even at that company 2 years. I think it was maybe a year and a half, maybe. And I told them, I said, hey, I've been here so-and-so, I've been doing this, been doing that. I would like a promotion and a raise. And so then they came back the next day and said, Alysha, we don't currently have any openings, but we like your work. You're doing great, X, Y, and Z. But then after my supervisor walked out, she told me, she said, Alysha, I just want to let you know you were overqualified when we hired you, and we knew that. But we were hoping that you'd be willing to stay. Now, I kid you not, that was a trigger.
Whoa.
That was my trigger when she told me that. And I said, that's when I started reevaluating. I'm like, overqualified. And I sold myself short. So at that point, I said, no. I said, I need more. So then I started jumping from firm to firm and, trying to find another happy place.
Right.
But at that point, I was never satisfied. But of course, in between that, I was helping friends. I was helping strangers and family.
Right. You're still doing your side hustle.
Right. I was helping them with their tax situations and getting their small business accounting stuff together. And was honestly not charging little to nothing, right? Mm-hmm. Just how new business owners do. They charge little to nothing. And so I'm like, man, I'm just going to do this just to make up the difference of what I requested from my raises and whatnot. So then shortly after I left the firm, they called me back and wanted me to come back. So I'm sitting here, I'm an opportunist. I'm no shame in my game.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any hard feelings. I just understood it was business. So when they called me back, one of the owners called me, not my supervisor.
Oh, wow.
So she called me and she said, hey, Alysha, we have an opening in our tax department, because I was in the back office department before. And she said, hey, we have an opening in the tax department. I would love to bring you back. If you could just show up for an interview. And at that time, I was a traveling auditor. And I said, sure, I don't mind. I'll come in for an interview. I went in for the interview. I put in my request for the salary. She gave me $3,000 over my salary request, which, of course, at that time was probably about $20,000 more than I was making.
Wow.
So I left for an additional 23. And I was happy all over again.
Wow.
But then, of course, more money, more problems, right?
Right.
And also more responsibility. So
that stress starts coming in, huh?
Yeah.
Woo!
So all the demands, all the stress, all that started coming in, and I'm thinking, man.
How many years out of school are you at this point? How many years out of school are you at this point?
So I graduated, I think we were right at 5 years. We were right at 5.
I didn't even last.
Yeah, we were right at 5 years. Yeah. And so we were right at 5 years. Even then, because of the salary that they gave me, I was still happy. I wasn't as happy as that first time.
Right.
But I was happy to an extent. But then it got to the point where I realized, when I looked around and I saw the 5, I said, wow, 3 of us in this department, 1 in admin, 1 in IT. I'm like, wow. I started looking around. Then they, I guess they thought we were doing something else, but because I got a promotion and everything else, they started inviting me to go meet with the clients. So I said, oh, I get to see this side of it. So I start going to meet with the clients, going to their locations, going to the different conferences, meeting people. So I said, wow, this is what business is about. This is how they secure these deals. So I'm sitting there, I'm walking side by side. What are we doing? Who are we talking to? What are you saying? You're right. So I'm watching all of this. And so at that point, after I went on a couple, and I said, okay, we're doing the same thing over and over again. Right. And I mean, because I was a sponge, a complete sponge. So at that point, I'm like, man, I'm just going to put my own twist to this and be out. So I went and started my company. And that was 20, because I received my master's in 2013.
2015 or something like that?
No. So I started the company in 2013. No, I got my master's in 2014. I started the company in 2013.
Mm.
But I was just doing small projects because I couldn't balance all of it too much. So after I graduated with my master's, requested my increase at work, and took that increase and invested it into my company to get it started. By the time I thought about that, okay, we need to go ahead and get this thing jumping, it was because my husband ended up getting injured right before we got married.
Wow.
And so if you know anyone who's ever gotten married, that you take off a lot of time from work to get all that stuff done. Well, right after we got married, I had to take an additional 4 to 8 weeks off to tend to my husband at that time because he had to have surgery. And then he had to learn how to walk again and all this other stuff. So my boss at that time told me, she said, Alysha, I can't allow you to work from home because you do not qualify to work from home. And I said, what? I don't qualify. I said, well, what do I need to do to qualify? And she said, well, your supervisor has to recommend you. And I said, well, let's talk to her, She said, well, I already did. She didn't recommend you. So I went back to my supervisor and I was like, hey, I said, what do you need for me to recommend me to work from home? And she said, I didn't know you wanted to work from home. That was another red flag. I said, yeah, I said, I'm interested. Of course, I played it off. I didn't throw anybody under the bus. I said, no, I said, I'm interested. And she said, okay, well, let's schedule a meeting. We can work through this and whatnot. So then, of course, my supervisor went back to the lady that which is her supervisor, and shared the information. And of course, she quickly shared with her and said, no, she doesn't qualify. Right. So that part it's up. And so while I was at home, I told my husband, I said, something's got to change. I said, because the lady that I spoke with, I was hoping that she would be able to relate to me because she's married. She has kids.
Yeah.
And if your husband needed you at home, wouldn't you be there? But, supposedly the firm was family oriented, but that didn't happen. So at that point, I told my husband, I said, hey, I said, I have X amount of dollars in my savings. I'm going to go ahead and pull half of that, get my website together. I'm going to get my systems together and pay for some ads, and I'm out. And that's what I did. I spent probably about $1,000 on ads. And at that point, I got so busy. I didn't leave the job. I was still trying to work the job and work the business, but I failed.
Okay, talk about that. Why did you fail?
Because I couldn't balance the two. And anyone who knows about putting ads out, I mean, if you put the ads out the right way, your business
gonna pop,
blows up. And that's what started happening.
Did you do a Facebook ad with a video, or did you do photo?
So it was photo on Facebook, and then I did a photo on Google Ads. But between the two of them,
a lot of people don't know, do the both.
Right. You can't just put all your eggs in one basket. Right. So I did between those two. And then I was putting, I did like a bot on LinkedIn to connect with people and get in people's inboxes and things like that.
Yep.
So that's how I was getting connections.
And you learned that yourself because you had the time to figure it out.
Yeah, I had,
but
right. I put in the time.
Money to hire a freelancer to do it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Of course. It's either you got the money or you got the time. And I had the time. Absolutely. So, so I ended up doing that. Come May, I took my known vacation right after tax season. My husband and I went to New Orleans. We enjoyed ourselves. I came back from New Orleans. I think I was at work for maybe a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. I woke up, and I kid you not, that's how I know how everything moves and it's in the right way. Right. So I woke up. Well, I'll say the night before, I was a little uneasy. I had a hard time going to sleep. And my husband and I, we were sitting down, we were talking, and he was having a hard time going to sleep. And I said, I don't know. I didn't think too deep into it. We just talked until we went to sleep. I woke up with butterflies in my stomach. And I'm sitting here thinking, whoa, why do I have butterflies in my stomach? What is going on? So I woke my husband up because he worked nights. So I woke him up and I said, hey, I said, I don't feel like I need to go to work today. I said, something's up. I just don't know what it is. I said, but I don't have a good feeling. So I sat in bed. I typed up the email to say I wasn't coming to work, but then I didn't send it. Something told me to go in anyways. So I went in, but I stopped. Something told me not to rush. I kid you not. Like, I was listening to every voice that was coming to me. It was like, grab you breakfast, just relax, don't rush into work. And I was like, okay. So I went to Chick-fil-A, went to Starbucks. Then I walked into the office. It was about close to 9:30. We're not supposed to be in the office. We shouldn't show up in no later than 9. And then you get a 15-minute grace period. I was like, forget it. I'm showing up at 9:30. So I showed up at 9:30. I log into my computer. Everything's moving so slow. And I'm like, what is going on? And then I log into the task system, and I saw that all my tasks were reassigned. I was like, shoot, this is why I didn't need to come to work. Right? So then I'm like, well, I might as well just go and enter in my time that I had for the previous days. I'll just do that and go back and read all my old emails that I never read. So as I'm starting to do that, next thing you know is lunchtime. And then here's another voice that says, go to lunch. So I said, okay, I'm going to go to lunch. I go to my car. I don't remember where I went to lunch. And then I came back, sat in my car. I went to lunch for a whole hour. Now, remind you, I was already 30 minutes late.
Right.
So I went to lunch for an hour, came back, and then I said, okay, well, let me go back in. Still no work. Because I told my supervisor before I left, I said, hey, I'm running low on work, blah, blah. She said, okay, I'll get that fixed out. No worries.
Yep, I've heard that before. I know
right.
that.
Yep. So then I'm sitting there twiddling my thumbs. So I'm like, well, I guess I'll just check my personal email at this point. So I started checking that or whatnot. Next thing you know, I get a call from my supervisor. And so I was like, hey, she was like, yeah, come on into my office real quick, blah, blah, blah. I said, cool. I said, do I need pen and pad, or are you just going to hand me something? She said, yeah, bring the pen and pad. It's fine. And I said, okay. So I thought, oh, maybe we're getting some training in. Because that's usually what happened when you ran low on work. You usually shadow somebody.
Gotcha.
So then I was like, okay, cool. So I walk in, I see HR, I see her.
Woo!
And I was looking.
They hit you with the triple.
I said, what? I said, hey, what's going on? Well, first, when I peeped up, I said, oh, I'll come back. She said, no, come on in. So I said, oh, okay, hey, y'all, what's going on? My normal thing, right? And she says, yeah, have a seat. So I have a seat. Then she hands me this packet of paper, right? And she just says, here, read this and let me know what you think. I said, okay. I start reading. I said, what? And I put it down. I look at it, put it down. I look up at her. I look down again. And I said, what's up with this? What's going on? And she said, she started turning red. And then the HR next to me, she just says, Alysha, we just don't believe you're a good fit for the firm anymore. And I looked and I said, but you just gave me a promotion and a raise. I don't get what's going on here. And so then the lady in front of me, who was one of the partners, she said, well, Alysha, you were supposed to have a meeting with your supervisor on this day. Did she not explain to you what would happen if this? I said, no. I said, we went to go grab pizza that day. We talked about my family. She asked me, did I have anything going on? And she just told me to, pay closer attention to my work. And because it's the summer and times get slow. And she looked at me and she looked confused. And so I told her, I said, I didn't have any concerns walking away from that meeting. So I said, and she didn't give me nothing. So why would I think that my job is on the line? And she was like, well, that's not necessarily how that meeting should have gone. And I'm like, so I'm getting fired for no reason? And she said, well, no, you had some issues with this and that or whatnot. Now, granted, some of the issues that she brought up are legitimate because I wasn't paying attention. I was paying attention to my business.
Okay, that's honesty. I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah. And honestly, yeah, but some stuff I was like, okay, this is straight BS. But the other stuff, okay. Now, granted, I wasn't going to fight them because I knew I was like, well,
this is your blessing to leave.
Right. And it's interesting that you say that, because exactly my words.
Yep.
I said, wow. I said, this is the blessing that I asked for. And she said, well, what does that mean? I said, if I explained it to you, you wouldn't understand.
Exactly.
And so I took my paperwork. She said, well, there's a severance package in the back. There's your last pay stub. There's this, that, whatnot. And I said, oh, okay. I said, well, thank you for the opportunity. I said, I appreciate it. And she said, you're welcome and have a great day. So I walked out, went to my office. Now, one thing that I definitely noticed, everybody's door was closed as I was walking out her office. Everybody's door was closed. So I'm like, wow, the doors are closed. Wow, what's really going on? So I felt like at that point, everybody knew that I was being let go, where many people said that they were shocked. But in terms of the department I was in, I feel like the entire department already knew, right? Because the department was so small. I mean, it was like 8 of us, maybe 9 of us. And we met every Monday. So I was like, it couldn't have been random. But let me tell you also how God really works, because I cleaned out my office before we went to New Orleans. So when the lady, and I didn't know why. And again, I was just following what was being brought to me. The lady said, oh, I got a box for you. I said, ma'am, I don't need a box. I said, I don't have much here. She said, oh, you cleaned your office out? I said, I cleaned it out before I left for New Orleans. And so then I told her, I said, well, what do you want me to do about my time? And she said, oh, you didn't put in your time? I said, no, I put it in at the end of the week. I never put it in every day. I said, it takes too much time. I spend less time doing it once a week. And she said, oh, okay, well, just write it down and then we'll pay you out. I said, okay. So I wrote it down. I said, I need to take a picture so I make sure that my time matches my pay stub. So I did that, and then I started walking out. And as I walked out, I went to my car. And by the time I got on the freeway, a couple of my coworkers called me.
Whoa.
And they said, Alysha, we just got the email. Are you okay? And I said, I'm fine. I said, I was shocked, but not really, but I'm fine. I said, they gave me enough severance to last me and my husband 6 months. And they said, they paid you a severance. I said, let me tell you something. I said, this was all a political move. I said, I'm not crazy. And, I'll take my blessings as they are. I said, it's enough for me to go and build my business the way I need to. And me and my husband not worry about a darn thing until tax season comes again in January. So I was able to pay all of our bills through December, the end of December of that year. And they let me go. And it was real strange, because they let me go on May 31st of 2017. Now, for anybody who's ever been let go from a job, if they let you go at the end of the month, your benefits stop that day.
Right.
But I went to the doctor and everything about a week or two before. Got everything checked out. So I didn't need to go to the doctor for another year.
Wow.
Everything worked out the way it needed to. And not the way that I thought I wanted it to happen, because I said I was going to stay until December 31st.
Right.
But everything in the universe moved by May 31st. You know what I mean? So a whole 7 months before. So, at that point, I'm like, man, this is crazy. I called my husband, told him about it. He then said, he was like, why are you joking? Because my husband and I were goofballs with each other.
Oh, okay. So you really thought you were playing?
He thought I was playing. I said, babe, I got fired. He was like, stop playing. They just promoted you. Why would you get fired? I said, I'm not playing. I got the paperwork with me. I'm on my way home. Because it was maybe about 2:30. And he was getting dressed to go to work. Because remember, I said he worked nights. So then I got home. Because he was like, I'm about to head to work. He was like, but I'm about to turn around. I'll meet you at the house. So when he met me at the house, I gave him a packet. It was probably about that thick. I said, go on to the back page. I said, there's a severance. I said, it all comes in about 2 or 3 weeks. So I think we'll be all right. So he looked at me and he's freaking out. He was like, are you kidding me? What are we going to do? I said, babe, I'm not worried about it. I said, this is enough to pay for the bills. I said, but I was like, your paycheck will pay for our gas, our food, everything else. I said, I'm not worried about it. It'll be fine. So, so he went to work. He's stressing. And I kid you not, he called me at least 5 or 6 times while he was at work. Yeah. You all right? Everything good? Right. But I kid you not, I was so motivated to the point where I was doing cold calls and landed a client. Yeah, landed a client doing cold calls by 6 p.m. that night. I wasn't playing. I was not playing at all. Now, granted, yes, I landed a client, and just with all transparency, I charged that client $150 a month. I didn't care. I was happy to make something, right? And that was just for some accounting services and whatnot. And of course, now I understand why they signed on. Ain't nobody doing this for $150 a month, right? So they signed on. They were getting the world, right? Anytime they needed me, I answered, hey, right, I'm there. You know what I mean? And
how long did that client last? How many months did they stay with you?
6 months. I was done.
Yeah.
I sent them a resignation letter, right? They lasted maybe about 6 months, and then I went out on faith. I didn't have any type of income from that client, but I was getting projects in, right? Gotcha. So I wasn't making, $10,000, $20,000 a month. I think the most I made was maybe $1,000 a month. Wow. But either way, it was still enough. Because remember, they gave us severance. So I really wasn't, stressing for money. Right. Mm-hmm. So, and then, so I had all that going. That was good to go. But then I let that client go. I said, forget this. Right. But then clients wanted to come to my house because I told them I was virtual. And so my husband said, nope, cut it. You need an office. Don't bring these people to this house. So I said, okay. I said, that's fine. So November of 2017 came. I signed a lease. In the building I'm still in now. I'm just in a different office. Signed on with that and moved in. Next thing you know, and I can't stress enough to any business owner that says they can't afford brick and mortar, or they can't afford a lease or anything like that, because you can. And I say that because I had a client that was paying, multiple clients that pay me up to maybe about $1,000 a month. Right. My rent at that time was $450 a month, right? So now I'm almost 50% out, right? Yeah. So I was like, man, how am I going to pay for this? But then it got to the point where nothing was coming in. But thank God I'm a saver, because that was the only way that any of this moved. I didn't spend a dime unless I had to.
Did you also leverage credit too to build your business?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that's part of what I call the privilege side. That's how me and my husband, we kind of goof about that. But my parents made sure my sister and I understood credit, understood banks.
Incredible.
And we started working on our credit when we were 15.
Amazing.
So by this time, I've already had at least 10 plus years of credit. So I was able to go and request, hey, can I get a credit limit increase? Next thing you know, people are like, oh yeah, here's 20,000. Right. Here's 15,000. Here's 10,000. And I'm like, whoa, they're just giving this away. And my husband was like, I can't do that.
Cheat code for people listening. Use the credit card for your Facebook ads.
Oh, absolutely. I still do that now.
Still got to do that all day.
No, I still do that. Ooh. I don't pay cash unless I'm required to pay cash.
Right.
Right. But now don't get it twisted. I still pay my credit off. It don't just sit there. Away. Right. Yep. But yeah, I definitely use that. I don't use my cash to get business.
Yep.
I use the credit to get the business. And then when the business pays, boom, we pay the credit card off. So, oh no. And that's, again, what some other people will say, oh, that's privilege. If so, then I'll take what I can get. Right. Yeah. But I leverage credit no matter where I go. People look at it as a bad thing. But if anyone who listens to, who was that, Grant Cardone, yeah, he leverages credit all the time. Right. I spent an entire summer researching credit, finance, budgeting, accounting, taxes, and never made it to the stocks. I started stocks way late in life. But I did all this research. So if you told me that you had like a 400 credit score, I could tell you exactly how to get it up. That's not my specialty. I don't advertise it. Gotcha. I do it for friends and friends only. But I kid you not, like doing that research for that summer of that 2 or 3 months, it changed my life.
I love the hustle. I love the
Yeah.
hustle. Oh, I'm so inspired. I'm literally, after I'm done with this, I'm about to go hop on some YouTube videos and keep watching more stuff. Because I got a couple plays I'm putting together, and I know.
Yeah, and YouTube wasn't even a thing back then. I was sitting there scrambling. Things were like cartoonish back in the day when I was researching. And I mean, it was breaking it down like, hey, this is the positive bank balance, negative bank balance.
Wow.
Here's credit. Do this and do that, and how it leverages and moves. And I'm just like, what? But when I go and look at now, if I go search online, it's pretty black and white. They'll have some photos, some stock photos and whatnot. They didn't have that back then, like in the 2000s. So things looked completely different. And there wasn't that many websites out either. So I was going back and forth to the same websites.
So in closing here, in terms of what you're looking for today, what inspires you today, what type of clients your preferred, your VIPs, what type of clients and niche are you focused on now, and how can people connect with you?
Absolutely. So, just going back to my roots, diversity, equity, and inclusion consultants. Those are my heartbeat because I understand. I'm here for the fight, the same one that you are. That's our niche. Now, do we have other clients? Absolutely, we do. I'm a smart businesswoman. I won't deny that one, right? But I have my niche. I have my passion. I will say over half of our clients are DEI, but again, smart business all through here. Now, in terms of like services that we provide, that would include tax preparation, accounting and bookkeeping, and tax planning and strategy.
Excellent.
So between those three, that really encompasses a lot for a business owner and a consultant. And then, of course, you can connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and of course, via email. But for all of the social media platforms, it's the social media handle Distinct Tax Consulting. That's across all boards. And then for email, you can always email us at info@distincttax.com. And then our website is distincttax.com.
There it is. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm about to ride my bike, hang out, chill. You just like inspired my whole day. Seriously.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Because once we have another chat and you hear my story, you're gonna be like, we have the exact same story. I got let go too. Same thing.
Okay.
Worked out, planned out, had a health scare just like your husband.
Yeah.
Exact same thing. It's insane. So we'll talk about that, I'm sure.
Wow. Yeah, crazy. We definitely gotta connect on that one. I want to know.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. All righty. Everybody, thank y'all for tuning in to All Equity Podcast. You know what time it is, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the All Equity Podcast. Until next time.